Hello my fellow freedom builders and welcome back to the channel. As I promised in my last video, I were to talk more about hydrogen stocks. In my first video in the series I talked about hydrogen in an overall view, but today we're going to have a look at the first of the companies, and I have chosen a company that is kind of close to my own geography here in Denmark, and that is Nel or NEL from Norway. Now, you might already know this if you're interested in the hydrogen stock, but today I'll have a quick look at the company. I'll have a look at their products, if there is a demand for the products, and we'll look a bit at the charts to see where they are technically. We'll also have a quick look into the Nikola case because NEL here is one of the companies that have gotten a lot of pre-orders from Nikola, and of course we have to take into consideration if Nikola are in some sort of trouble, if that will affect the stock price of NEL. So let's have a look at it, and remember, if you comment in the comment section below what you think of the video or ideas for new videos, then you are participating in the competition for a 1 ounce silver coin that I'm finding a winner for in about a week. Alright, let's have a look at it. Now, the NEL here, as I said, it is a producer of equipment in the hydrogen sector. And let's just have a quick glance here at their investor material. I'll link to all of this below so you can find it yourself. I'll not go too much into depth with this. But as you can see here, if we just take a quick look at Stockopedia first, they have a market cap of around $2.5 billion. So it is not a small company, but they are not large either. It is called a mid cap here in the Stockopedia, and I guess that is kind of fair. Here we can see that the numbers are in Norwegian kroner, and you should divide by something around 7, I guess, to get US dollars if you want to see that. But they have revenues in the Q2 of 2020 here of around $20 million, up 21% from last year. They have a negative EBITDA, and we'll look at that in Stockopedia, but they are pretty much losing money, but they have a huge backlog of orders, 1 billion Norwegian kroner, a couple of $100 million, and that is up 75% since Q1. They have a very nice cash balance because they have been raising some new capital. As you can see here, the EBITDA is negative, and that is of course something we should consider, and we'll have a look at the numbers just in a second here. But the cash position, as you can see, they have been raising capital, 1.3 billion Norwegian kroner, and when we look at the order backlog, it is also going up nicely. So actually, just from the quick glance here in the beginning, this looks actually very nice. This is how many shareholders they have. They have around, I think it is 75% of the shareholders or of the shares are actually held by institutional shareholders. So that is quite solid. And when we're looking at it, the leading pure play hydrogen technology company with a global footprint. And as you can see, they have been around since 1927, so almost 100 years, 93 years, and in that time they have delivered 3,500 units for 80 countries, or 80 plus. And now, why is a unit? Normally, up until recently, it has been alkaline and PEM electrolyzers. And if you remember the video about the hydrogen, then the electrolysis is the process where you split up the water molecule, the H2O, so you get H2 for itself, that is the hydrogen, and you get the oxygen, the O, by itself. So this is a process where you add power either from renewable sources or coal or oil or whatever into this process where you have a membrane, at least in the PEM here, and from that you get the hydrogen gas. And they are selling these hydrogen electrolyzers all over the world. Now, a few years ago, they made an acquisition of something called H2 Logic, a small company in a city called Herning, near the city I live in here in Denmark. And they had specialized in making these hydrogen tank station, and this is of course some of the product that Nikola is interested in, because they are planning to build all of these hydrogen tank stations. So these are the two main products they have. It is the electrolyzers and it is the fueling stations. And this of course has been their main business like forever, almost 100 years, but this part is definitely growing quickly. Now they have a production plant in United States, in Norway, something called Herøya, and then in Herning here in Denmark, where they are producing the tank stations, the hydrogen stations. Now, when you're looking at some of the orders they're getting in, the pre-orders, then the Nikola thing is kind of a big thing, and they are mentioning that a lot. And now it should be said that this is of course the report from Q2 2020, and this was before all of the fuss about, or the negative fuss you could say, about Nikola with the Hindenburg report and all of this stuff came out. So at this point, this was actually a good thing to bring into the report. It might still be. But I've gotten a lot of questions why I have so much hate for Nikola, and actually I don't. As I've said in all my videos, I really hope they succeed. I just don't like the CEO, and I don't like that web of lies they have spun up. But I truly hope that their vision will come true. And of course for the NEL shareholders, I really hope that Nikola gets big and large, because that then they will be ordering a lot of the electrolyzers and tank stations. Nikola's vision, as you know, is to fill up United States with 1,000 hydrogen tank station that should be able to produce its own hydrogen, and that is where NEL here is coming in. Now you can see here they have some other orders, of course, for tank stations. They have orders for they have signed a framework here with a lot of electrolyzers. You can see that South Korea and also Japan actually is really focusing on what they call the Hydrogen Society. Japan was meant to be showing this off here at the Olympics, but that of course is somewhat delayed. But HyNet is to roll out 100 hydrogen fueling stations in Korea by 2022 as a part of the national ambition in Korea to have more than 300 stations operational by the same year. So that is also a part where NEL is coming in. They have 2.5 megawatt PEM orders here. And then they have been granted some research and development money, around, let's see here, a couple of $1 million here from Norway, and $4.4 million by US Department of Energy here. So there is a lot of focus on it. The large capacity in Norway, in Herøya here, can right now produce, or they are ramping it up right now to produce electrolyzers of 500 megawatt per year. And they have the capacity to expand that to 4 times as much, to 2 gigawatt per year. So that's also an important factor here, that they can actually increase their production fourfold here without running into some capacity problems. So this is basically the quick outlook here, and as I said, I will link to it below. Now, a lot of the focus right now is on transportation, but when we look at the different markets that they can service here, let's see, they have a big overview here where we can see that where hydrogen can be used: additive manufacturing, ammonia, fertilizer, chemicals, crystal growth, and so on, glass, laboratories, leak detection, steel, semiconductors. So they have been selling to these industries for years and years and years. Of course, as I mentioned in my first video about hydrogen, because hydrogen is, even though it is more expensive in production by now at least, then in the industry it can be used for a lot. And in the later years, where there have been a lot of focus on tapping the renewable energy sources, then of course an industry, a factory, a manufacturing plant should also be able to run in the middle of the night where there's no sun. So at that point, hydrogen is actually a very good way of stabilizing your electricity inflow, especially at areas in the world, as I mentioned in the first video, where the electricity inflow might not be as stable. If you have been on vacation in different parts of Africa, Asia, actually also Southern Europe. I remember a vacation in Greece where pretty much every single day there was a fallout in electricity. So at that point, it can be very, very good to have hydrogen as an energy source. But all of that I mentioned in my first video, of course. So this is the basic company. This is the product. They have, as far as I can tell, a pretty strong management team. So that is also in place. And when we look at the demand for the product, and of course there is a demand for all of the industrial product. But right now in the lower right corner here, you can see transportation, and that is of course one of the really big key sectors right now where hydrogen is growing, and one of the reasons why NEL here is really that there's some really great potential here. If we just look at some of the links, and again I'll link to all of these below, but as you can see here, I just took a quick look around in the hydrogen news. And you can see Japan to commercialize hydrogen energy transport by 2025. So they are focusing on it a lot. Then we have Nytt land tar I bruk hydrogen tåg för persontransport. If you're from Norway, I'm pretty sure I just slaughtered your language here. But it just say that in Austria, they are taking a hydrogen train in use here. So... and sorry for you guys in Norway. I hope it was not too bad. Then we can see Google may tap nuclear and green hydrogen to hit zero carbon by 2030. We can see here that Denyo and Toyota jointly develop and start verification tests for fuel cell power supply vehicles and so on. And as you can see, of course, NEL is not involved in all of these, but every single time we can see a company focusing on the hydrogen as a fuel in transportation, then NEL has a good place in that sector with their acquisition of the H2 Logic, the tank stations part. So I think that was a very wise move for them. The EU Commission is going green here. Again, I think this is Norwegian, but they will. Their goal is to have 3 million electrical charging points here and 1,000 hydrogen stations. And here we can see a kind of the aspects here, because as I mentioned in my first video, the electricity part of transportation is, of course, they have some advantages because there already is an infrastructure, even though it is not really it's not really ready for millions and millions of electrical vehicles. Then at least there's something to build on. And 3 million charging stations is quite a lot in Europe, but if you see here 1,000 hydrogen stations, what is there? 26, 25 EU countries. That's around 40 hydrogen stations in average per country. That's actually not very much. So it is okay to have the focus here, and NEL only needs a fraction of orders here on these 1,000 hydrogen stations for it to be a good deal for them. But there is focus on it right now, and the EU is focusing very hardly on this green transportation right now, like it or not. Hyundai to enter US market with hydrogen trucks in 2022. So no matter if it is Nikola or Hyundai or Toyota or Mercedes or whoever is coming up with the hydrogen trucks, then they are coming. And as I mentioned in my first hydrogen video, the hydrogen has some advantages when we are talking about semi-trucks, because at least of right now, they can actually drive a longer distance on one charge, you could call it, on one tank. If it was an electrical vehicle, it would be a charge, but they can run a longer while in one fill here than an electrical vehicle can. And that is, of course, an advantage if you are running the semi-trucks here. So there is a growing demand for this, and that is, of course, also why a company like NEL has its place. Absolutely. Now, The reason why I'm a bit skeptical right now, not of the NEL as a company, but of the price of the stocks right now, is, as I mentioned, the Nikola issue. Because if you have been following my Nikola stocks, then there's been a lot of problems there, and Trevor Milton, the former CEO, the founder of the company and the chairman, has been out saying some really crazy stuff about what they could do with batteries and so on. And they went into this joint venture with General Motors, where it all of a sudden got very clear that Nikola don't have any technology of their own. That doesn't actually really make the vision bad, because I do like the vision, and you could discuss if at what point hydrogen will be cheap enough to really compete with EVs and so on. But the vision of having this network in the United States and maybe all over Europe as well, and Asia, where you can fill up your semi-trucks with hydrogen, that is not a bad vision. So I do like the vision, and I do like the entire concept. But I found an article here questioning the Nikola's business model assumptions, and what becomes quite clear here is that the economy, the financials in their setup simply don't add up. There are a lot of points here, and these are from their own numbers. So this is not some evil short seller that is out here. This is simply just an analyst going through this and saying, well, their hydrogen station rollout might be some sort of overvalued here, because as to the refueling side of the business model, station capex at 16 million to produce 8 tons per day of hydrogen appears to be well below current hydrogen station building costs. For example, Sunline's just built a 900 kilograms per day station. That is less than 1/8 of the 8,000 kilograms Nikola is aiming for. And that hydrogen production capacity and provided from Nikola's supplier NEL. So that is the same supplier, but that required almost $9 million to produce 900 kilo. So it might be somewhat on the positive side to assume that Nikola can actually produce 8,000 kilos per day at only $16 million. And if you have seen my Nikola videos, you know that I've been very critical of this as well, because Nikola went out saying that first that their stations would cost in the area of $50 million. So that is 3 times this amount. But then all of a sudden they got the critique from the ARK Invest and Katie Wood. And all of a sudden, Trevor Milton went out saying, yeah, well, we've also brought the price down, so now we can make a station for $15 to $16 million. There were not really any calculations behind. We never saw any proof. It seemed like just a number he invented out of thin air. So they are questioning if it is possible to make 8 times as much production for only twice the cost. And that is definitely something to be aware of. Now, I know this is about Nikola and not directly about NEL, but you should consider that if the price of the NEL stock had been pumped up by all of this talk about the Nikola orders, then it might be stalling a bit, and we'll have a look at the chart just in a second. It might be stalling a bit due to the doubt in the market if Nikola is actually able to build this. Because right now, Nikola has around $700-800 million on the book, and in the agreement they have signed with General Motors, they are actually committing to pay General Motors $700 million in production, manufacturing costs here for building this manufacturing plant to their badgers. So they're pretty much they don't have any cash left. I know this is not a one-time payment, but it is expensive for them, and they don't have much liquidity. So where they are going to find the money to build 700 to 1,000 stations of at least $16 million each, but probably more like 30, 40, maybe up towards $50 million each, that is a big question. And if they have to walk back on that, and that income, that order was calculated into NEL's price, share price, then we might see some further drop in that. But we'll have a look at that in a second. So here they're discussing about how in the future it would be able to reduce the price of the hydrogen, but right now it might seem a bit too optimistic with the Nikola case. Now looking at the stock price here at NEL, we can see that they have been in a really good streak here, going from around 7.5 and up to 20 something up here, couple of 100% increase in price, and before that they went down, they went up from around 2, and actually they went up 900% from the bottom here. A lot of this has to, at least over the last year and a half, has been in the hype from the Nikola. That is at least my assessment of it. Of course they are getting good orders in, but I think the Nikola hype has been a lot of this price movement here. And you can see that the second that the Nikola case was questioned, we could see that NEL here was beginning to go a bit sideways. Of course, that could also be a result of this hefty rise in price here. That this is just a little pause here in the price movement. But my assessment is that a lot of this stalling of the price is because of the Nikola hype running a bit out. Now, if you're looking at this technically, we can see that the RSI is still above 50, but looking at the compared to relative strength here, and in this case I have compared it to the SPY, but it doesn't really matter if it is the S&P 500 or the Norwegian OBX you are comparing to, it is still tipping down and doing worse than the market. So what we can see here is that it is in some sort of a downtrend in the comparative relative strength, meaning they are not doing as well as the market. Personally, I don't want to be in a stock that is not running faster than the market, but I know that if you are investing in NEL as a play in the hydrogen sector, then this of course could be an area to enter if you think they are going way up further. So right now, when we're looking at the daily graph here, you can see that they are kind of in a range here. They are moving somewhere between 16, 17 and up towards 23. And if you think this is a range they'll be running in before shooting further up, then of course this could be the place to enter with a discount of maybe 20-25% here. So if you are into NEL and if you are into hydrogen, then this could be the time to enter. Personally, as you know, I am a trend follower and I do like to see a bit of buyer strength before getting in. That means, of course, that I never get in at the very bottom of these areas here. I would probably, if I were to enter NEL right now, I would probably wait for a break up above here, a drop back, and then some sort of buyer strength upwards here. So that's what I would be looking for, but that also means that I will miss these bottom 50% of the move if it is going in that direction. On the other hand, of course, I also miss the drop in price if it drops below here. So that is a trade-off that you always make here. So on the technical side, it is not completely where I would like to see it, but if you look at the sector and if you look at NEL as a company, I actually think it is quite well positioned in the hydrogen sector, and I think it is definitely a player that you should keep an eye out to maybe invest in. I can see with my strategy here that I have gotten some very good buy signals. I got a buy signal down here around 8. I got one again here at around 10, 11. And right now we are seeing a slower trend here, and that is of course one of the reasons why I am not buying up right now. So in the upcoming videos I will show you some more very interesting companies in this sector, some of them somewhat larger than NEL of course, but it is an interesting sector, and it is something where we in the next 10, 20, 30 years really can see some explosive growth. As I said in my first video, I don't think that the hydrogen, the fuel cells will take over the entire market and simply run the EVs completely over. I think that at least for the next 10 years or so, I think that the battery tech will be superior if we are talking just day-to-day personal transportation. But in the semi-truck, I think hydrogen has an advantage, and depending on which research has the greatest success, where we see the largest development here, then maybe hydrogen can get into that space as well. So it is very interesting. Keep an eye out for NEL. I'm not buying right now, but of course you have to make up your own decisions. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you do like my videos and find them informative, then remember to hit the subscribe and like down there and comment in the comment section below. That's all for now. Thank you for your time. Take care of yourself and your money out there. Talk to you again very soon.